I've only ever had really one real stitch in my life. Now, technically, I've had my wisdom teeth taken out, so yes, there were stitches involved, but those were inside of my mouth, and I don't really count them, honestly. I'm talking about the kind of stitches that come from an accident, the kind that leaves a little scar and a story. I got this stitch in my life when I was 18 months old. And here's the strange part, I think I remember it. Now, science tells us that usually we don't remember much before the age of like 4. And that's mostly true for me. But this memory exists in my mind like a few little screenshots, like Polaroid captured images, tiny flashes, but they're there. Whether those memories are real or something my brain stitched together, pun intended, from the stories I've been told, I don't think we'll ever know for real. But here's the story, anyways. Apparently, toddler me got into a trash can, and inside was like a soda can, a Coke can, something like that. And somehow I managed to cut my finger on the opening in the Coke can. It was my left finger. It was a cut pretty deep. Now, when you're 18 years old, you don't exactly have great judgment, go figure. So I'm sure I didn't handle it well. I was bleeding, probably screaming, confused, crying. Not good. My oldest brother was the first one I found, and he wrapped my finger in a towel and started yelling for my parents. My dad was in the shower, my mom was outside, a little bit of chaos. Eventually, they got me to the doctor, and that's where the important part of this story happens. The doctor examined me and my finger and said, yeah, it needs one stitch. Just one. And then he looked at my dad and he said something kind of interesting. He said, hey, we've got two options. Option one is give the baby a numbing shot. The shot will hurt, she's going to scream, and then once it's numb, do the stitch. She'll probably still scream again because she can see it happening and she'll still feel a little bit of pressure. Not good, but it's an option. Option number two, you can skip the numbing shot and just hold her down. I'll put the stitch in quickly, she'll scream, but it'll only happen once. Either way, there's going to be screaming, and either way, there's going to be pain. Now, I want to imagine my dad in that moment. He's holding his 18-month-old daughter, and the doctor is basically saying, there is no pain-free option. You just have to choose which kind of pain your daughter's going to go through. And my dad made that call. He said, let's just do the stitch. No numbing shot. Just one round of pain instead of two. I want to pause here for a second because it would be really easy to judge that decision. But if you're a parent or if you've ever had to make a hard decision for someone you love, you understand the position he was in. Sometimes you're not choosing between a good option and a bad option. Sometimes you're choosing between two hard options, two painful options. So my dad held me down, and the doctor put one stitch in my finger. I have this faint image in my head of being held down on the table. And maybe it stuck with me because for an 18-month-old, that was probably the worst pain I'd ever felt in my life. Thank goodness that was the worst pain I'd ever felt. And in some ways, probably one of the worst pains I've ever felt my entire life since then. Pain tends to stick out in our memories. But here's the part that matters most. The doctor said something that turned that day into a life lesson. He basically told my dad, the finger is already cut. The pain is already here. My job is now to cause a little bit more pain so it can heal correctly. And that's kind of like, well, that's a lot of life, isn't it? There are moments where pain is unavoidable. You don't get to choose whether the pain exists. It's already there. You only get to choose how you move through it. Sometimes the choices in front of us both hurt. Stay at the job you hate or risk leaving for something you don't know. Tell the hard truth or live with the consequences of your silence. Set the boundary or keep carrying the weight. Either way, there's pain. But avoiding the decision doesn't remove the pain. It usually just delays the healing. My dad taught me a second lesson that day. Because he didn't walk out of the room. He stayed. I'm sure at some point they probably could have had like a nurse come in and hold me down, but they didn't. My dad stayed there with me. and he held me down while the doctor stitched my finger. And I'm willing to bet I was screaming bloody murder. But at the same time, I'm willing to bet that his head was right next to mine, and he was whispering something along the lines of, I've got you, I've got you, I'm right here. You think about that for a second, that kind of strength. Not the strength to avoid pain, but the strength to stay present during it. Because the truth is, people we love will go through painful things. Sometimes we'll even be part of the decision that causes the pain, like a tough conversation, a boundary, or a choice that leads to growth. And the real test of love, it's not avoiding those moments. It's staying in the room when they happen. Staying when it's uncomfortable. Staying when it's messy. Staying when someone you care about is hurting. So here's what I want to leave you with. First of all, there will be moments in life when every option to go forward involves pain. When that happens, don't look for a painless path. Look for the path that leads to healing. And secondly, be the kind of person who stays in the room. Be the person who holds someone's hand while they're going through something hard. Be the voice that says, I know this hurts, but I am right here. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for someone isn't removing the pain. It's making sure they don't face it alone. And sometimes all it takes to learn that lesson is one stitch.